In 1994, Alexander Mackenzie Secondary School celebrated its 25th anniversary. Following is part 2 of the words that Dr. James Mackenzie spoke at that time about his ancestor. Kingston was the seat of government until 1844. It was here that Mackenzie sharpened his contracting skills. He contracted work related to Fort Henry, the Beauharnais Canal, the Welland Canal, the Martello Tower on Cedar Island, and development of the Montreal Harbor Basin. He also honed his formidable debating skills and political knowledge by attending and participating in political, religious, and temperance meetings. And of course by always reading. In political meetings he argued the Chartist and Reformers' point of view. Sarnia began in 1807 as a French-speaking settlement on the northeastern edge of a vast hardwood forest stretching to the Carolinas. The forest was so thick and impassable that travel to London was first by boat to Windsor and then by rail to London. That forest was cut, leveled, and gone by 1890. Mackenzie arrived in Sarnia 9 years after Cameron, the undisputed ruler of the bustling outport, and Assistant Commissioner of Public Works in the Lord Elgin Executive Council. Mackenzie and Cameron became bitter enemies over philosophy and substance. Their rivalry became so great that when Mackenzie became the secretary of the Reform Party, he parachuted George Brown, editor of the Toronto Globe, into Sarnia to successfully beat Cameron. Cameron in turn parachuted the Lanark Observer into Sarnia to compete with Mackenzie's new newspaper, the Lambton Shield. He sank the Shield by diverting printing money from his and his friends' businesses to the Observer and by sucking Mackenzie into a libel suit, which Cameron won because the evidence needed to clear Mackenzie was sealed by order in cabinet and kept from the court. Their debates in action were high drama, epic and biblical in nature, and above all, entertaining for the voters. By 1848, the prosperous contractor had built the Episcopal Church for $766, and later the Bank of Upper Canada, the courthouse and jails for Chatham and Sandwich. The one in Sandwich is now called Mackenzie Hall and was rescued by the persistent efforts of Evelyn McLean. It is now a busy and successful cultural center for Windsor. And the jail and courthouse for Sarnia, and several houses, including the Sadie House, where several of his possessions reside, thanks to Graydon Baines and the Sarnia Foundation. In 1851, he was made secretary of the Central Reform Association of Lambton, and in 1861 became the MP for Lambton County. From 1868 to 73, he was the tacit leader of the Reformers, Clear Grits or Liberals, in Parliament. In 1871, he was elected member of the Ontario Legislature for West Middlesex and provincial treasurer in a Blake Mackenzie government, which had defeated Sandfield Macdonald. His national development budget included roads, railways, immigration, education of the deaf and blind, assistance to hospitals, workhouses and poorhouses, and raising teachers' salaries. He made it simpler to sue the Crown, brought in conflict of interest laws, increased aid to municipalities, and gave assistance to new settlers. He did this on a budget of $2.5 million, with a larger surplus at the end of the budget year than at its beginning. He became acting premier for 6 months, while Blake rested in England. His last act in the provincial legislature was the abolition of dual representation, thus doing himself out of a job by the beginning of the following session. He, George Brown, and Blake literally conscripted Oliver Mowat, Vice-Chancellor of Osgoode Hall, and one of the Reform Fathers of Confederation, to become Premier. They then resigned to return to their jobs as MPs in the federal parliament. Part 3, tomorrow, will tell about his years as Prime Minister.